Hi everybody, it's Greg Friel here from Friel Music and Media. I kind of started too soon. We weren't quite ready. The countdown is on. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Karen Gibb from Mind Marvels. Good afternoon, good morning, good morning. Are we still in the morning?
Yeah, you're still in morning. Good morning.
Hold on, can I sing? Seriously need some caffeine. Okay. Good morning, Karen.
Good
For the folks
morning.
at home, quick intro, quick 30 seconds on who you are and why am I talking to you?
Sure. So my name's Karen, obviously, and you are talking to me because I think I have a pretty interesting career, I guess. I was a former teacher and I now work with young people on their emotional well-being in a little way that I think is a bit different to other traditional methods of helping young people.
Fantastic. Now, how long have you been doing that, Karen?
Just under 2 years now, that's right.
So how did you get into it? What were you doing beforehand? Was this something that you always wanted to do? You were like, I'm here to serve young people. That is my calling. That's what I want to do.
I was always really interested in working with young people. I had worked in youth clubs, I'd worked in nurseries and kind of after school clubs before when I was younger. And then I moved into a career of teaching, which I also really enjoyed. I always felt though with teaching that I wasn't quite helping young people in the way that I anticipated I would be. There was a lot of admin, a lot of work behind the scenes being a teacher. And I really started to explore different ways that I could potentially run my own business. But actually running my own business was something I'd never considered before, and it wasn't particularly something that I thought I was going to ever do. I guess looking back now, I maybe had the characteristics of somebody that would be fairly successful at running their own business. I didn't really like too much direction from other people. I had
This
lots
sounds
of
familiar.
right, okay, because once you become self-employed, it's pretty hard to go back to employment.
Yeah,
I
I mean, I've
imagine.
been self-employed for 28 years. I'm completely unemployable. Just, I
Oh,
couldn't work for anybody else ever. Never.
absolutely. Like even the thought of having to ask someone for annual leave, or
Oh, no.
to
I'm just
ask
kind of like, I've got a hair appointment. Forget about it, you know? Um,
exactly. So I would say I fell into it definitely.
but I mean, so it seems like you wanted to do something that was more practical, more hands-on, more purpose-driven. It wasn't kind of like I've got a job. I want to do this job, and I'm going to clock in and clock out at 3:30 or whatever it is. You're doing, in school hours. But you wanted to do something that was more hands-on, helping young people. Yeah.
Exactly. I wanted to make more of a direct impact. I think that's what was really at the heart of it. I had always been an anxious child myself, and I didn't really understand what anxiety was until later on in my life. And I think when I realised that actually there could have been strategies and things that have helped me from a young age, that then I started thinking, well, how could I help others? Because if we can start at the bottom, then hopefully that can filtrate up and help other members of the family and allow generations essentially by the end to all have an awareness of how to be calm and how to maybe react or not react in certain situations. And I think that's a really really powerful tool to have as a youngster and growing up into an adult.
Was there any one precipitating event? Precipitating, that's a pretty good word for this time of the
That is a
morning.
good word.
Yeah, that kind of set you on your path. Did something happen that you kind of go, I don't want this to happen to anybody else, or something that kind of just sort of set you on your way.
So my teaching job that I was in about 4 years ago, I had kind of had an argument with a colleague, and I was never one to have arguments and confrontation, but it kind of reached a head where we were both in a really negative headspace, I would say. I would be dreading going to school. I would be making up scenarios inside my head of what she was going to say and how I would react. And it was actually a really sad place in my life to be. I was always quite a positive person, and to see myself be dragged into something that maybe, there was elements of my fault and other people's faults, but to allow myself to be kind of sucked into drama really made me think, is this what I want to do the rest of my life? You know, I'd be driving to work thinking, oh, maybe, you know, I might break down or, you know, I might fall on ice when I get out the car and break my leg and be off school for a couple of weeks. And I thought this was really irrational thinking. Now it
Yeah, but
seems really
a
irrational.
terrible headspace to be in.
Awful, but I'm sure there's been times where we've all felt like that. We've made these
Absolutely, yeah.
scenarios up in our head, or you know, we thought, oh, that would be a solution, and I quickly realised that wasn't a solution. So a friend had suggested that we go and attend a stress control class run by NHS Lanarkshire, and for me that was a pivotal point in my life because it allowed me to see that actually we are not always right. I know it's hard to believe, Greg, isn't it? We're not always right.
Speak for yourself.
But, you know, there's other sides to a story. Other people have different viewpoints, perspectives.
Yeah.
And when
Empathy is the key ingredient, isn't it?
Exactly. And when I realised that, and I realised that actually, you know, there's bigger things going on in life than small petty arguments,
Yeah.
it really did change my outlook. And that's when I then explored mindfulness and came across basically how to be kind to yourself. I mean,
Yeah.
the way that we talk to ourselves, you know, you would get a slap if you spoke to a friend the way that we talk internally to ourselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally understand that. And I'm somebody who's really embraced the whole self-development thing over recent years. And it's, you know, certainly growing up, I would be a bit more, this is a bit woo and ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And, you know, and so much of it is common sense, but sometimes it's, you need to hear certain things at the right time. And it can just be a book that you read. Like I read a book last year called How to Be a Badass by Jen Sincero, which you might be familiar with. And, you know, saying a lot of the stuff that you know already, and, you know, it's, you're kind of familiar with all of this kind of stuff. But I just needed it at that time. And it was just the perfect time for me to read it. And it really, really resonated with me, you know. And I think that's the thing, is that whenever you kind of think of the impact that you could have on, you know, the young people that you're working with, and you might be that person that speaks to them at that precise moment that is just going to have that effect that just takes them in that positive direction when they might have gone the other way.
Exactly. And I think when I work with young people, I'm always very open, you know, and I'll say, you know, I used to experience this, or XYZ happened to me. I'm not perfect. I mean, I know, Greg, it's hard to believe, but I do still make mistakes. But it's just about what we do when we do make mistakes, or, you know, how we learn from our mistakes is more important sometimes. And
Absolutely.
I think even now when I do maybe make an error, I'll be the first one to hold my hands up, especially when it's, you know, maybe friends or work. You know, I'll be the first to say I didn't get that right, but what about XYZ? So if you don't always get things right, if you can offer a solution, and also that great word that you spoke about, empathy, you know, being empathetic to other people, then that really helps you. Because in my industry, there's lots of people that claim to be, you know, wellness coaches, or you know, maybe have quite holistic approaches to how to help people, which is absolutely fine. There's a place for that in every you know, in every field. But for me, I'm very much about being myself as a person, being honest, approachable, but also backing up what I have with research. So every session that I run is delivered, it's the NHS 5 steps to mental wellbeing. So I always like to ensure that things that I'm teaching are backed by research.
So how did you get started? Tell me about the sort of the first tentative steps with Mind Marvels then.
So I did a mindfulness course on self-compassion for myself. And then I started thinking about maybe mindfulness for young people. But then I realised that mindfulness doesn't always work for everyone, which is absolutely fine. And I started exploring maybe just a general calming tools, practical strategies that would help overall. And that's when I came across the NHS 5 steps to mental wellbeing. And I truly believe that's how I could base my sessions and make them work for every child, because half an hour of mindfulness is fantastic if that child's willing and they're engaged. If they don't want to be there, or they, you know, are not interested in mindfulness, then it just means that we've got different strategies we can use with each session. But I basically started it. I always had the name Mind Marvels, but I started it just working with small groups in primary schools, just little taster sessions, and then that's where I started really developing each session into the 5 steps and making it work as a smooth process.
Interestingly, you said something that whenever I talk to quite a lot of coaches and people who work in the self-development sector, particularly mindfulness, quite a lot of coaches, they ended up coaching because it was something that they either felt they needed themselves, or a process that they'd gone through, and then they were like, you know what, I've learned so much from this. It's something that I want to pass on to other people. And it was interesting that seems to be how that started for you.
Absolutely. I think unless you have that background of feeling like you needed somebody or you needed support, it may be quite hard to empathise with other people. So I think having that background of thinking, wow, imagine the kind of person that I could be now if I had all this behind me from a child's point of view. You know, I mean, the potential is unlimited for us all. We just don't really realise it. Or sometimes we don't ever realise it, which you do see in kind of adults that maybe think, or they'll say to you, you know, I could have done that, or I wish I had done that. And it's just so sad. You know, when do children stop dreaming about being an astronaut or a dancer or an actress or a footballer? You know, why do we always tell them they have to get a real job, you know? And what is a real job?
I still want to be an actress.
Well, you are more than entitled to be.
Yeah. So tell me about that first job, that first experience. You know, whenever you kind of you that realization that, hey, I'm actually doing this. This is what I set out to do. Did you have that moment, you know, a moment of clarity when you're like, oh yeah, no, this is exactly what I wanted it to be?
So I did a couple of little taster sessions, and then I ran a competition on Facebook just to offer a free session out to one of the local schools. And I went to a local nursery who'd won it, part of a school, and there was 40 children there, aged 3 years old. And when I walked in, my stomach just dropped, and I thought, how is this going to work? 25 minutes later, they were all laid out, some of them snoring away, relaxed and just really enjoying the session. And I think at that moment I thought, I can do this, I've got this, I can work with young people. If things don't work, I can quickly adapt it using my teaching skills. I can quickly, change a lesson or make it more appropriate depending who's directly in front of me. And I think when I saw those 40 children, that's when I think my heart just went, this is what you need to do, you know. It was a really lovely moment, and I just remember because it was a really warm, it was a day in June, it was really warm, and all the children had like all this ice cream around their faces. So when I walked in, I had so much against me. They were indoors. They were, you know, it was a hot day. It was roasting inside, and they all had ice cream. So there was loads of sugar going around their bodies. They were just so excited, and I thought, wow. And then by the end, when they were in that total state of relaxation, it was just the best feeling ever.
So, I mean, I would describe the kind of person that you are and the kind of business that you're doing. It's purpose driven. You know, you're not thinking of it in terms of I could earn millions of dollars doing this. That it's not that kind of business. It's not something that you're thinking I'm going to scale this in that kind of way. It seems to be more, you know, I want to do something that is fulfilling for me, and it's going to achieve, you know, this. Was that a conscious decision that you know after you're saying about the teaching experience, you move on to something else, and you kind of like, no, I want to be in control of this and do this myself. Was that a conscious decision, do you think?
It's a good question. I'm not sure.
It's a bit heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, you're full of good questions today, Greg.
I'm on some seriously strong caffeine this morning.
I think when I look back, maybe there was part of me subconsciously that was thinking, go for it, go be your own boss, go live your life. But for me, it was just very conscious in terms of how do I get out this toxic environment that I was working in. but also how can I help others at the same time. So whilst I don't have huge dreams of like, you know, scaling up the business, you know, proportionally, I think that I do want to help more children. So I suppose in that way, it's like, how do you help more when there's only one of me? And I guess that's where we look at this wonderful world of virtual online. You know, I don't know if you've heard of Zoom,
Or
Greg, in the last year.
yeah, that's all right. I suppose the other option is, you know, you could create an online version of it, or a franchise kind of program that other people interested in it could kind of get involved in, and then it becomes like it's an international program that people can. I want 10% to even just for planting that seed right now.
I know, and I suppose with any business you do have that concern that if somebody was to take it on with me, would they be as passionate? Would they have the same
Sure, yeah.
values? Would they have the same background? You know, would they be qualified to a standard that I, you know, would maybe deem acceptable for? Because you are essentially playing with people's emotions. You know, you're learning, they're encouraging themselves from you. It's a really privileged position to be in for children and young people to open up to you and to share their concerns or to, you know, ask for help from you. So it is it's a careful kind of tightrope that you balance. I was looking more at maybe YouTube channel and putting content on there from myself that then young people can access from, you know, worldwide essentially.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been running the business for a couple of years, and then COVID hits. How did that impact your business?
COVID was difficult for me. I took it really personally, and obviously it's not personal, it happened to everyone. But I think for myself, it was a time where I had to look professionally at the business, but also personally at myself and think about what was working in my life, what was not, what could be improved in the business, you know, what was working well. I lost a few contracts, obviously because schools closed. That was quite disheartening, and actually what it did was push me into being more the face of the business. Before I would hide behind the brand and what it had, and then I realised quickly that people buy from people and they want to know who it is that's hiding, you know, behind Mind Marvels. That's where the work on confidence and helping myself become better really did start. That journey then did start for me. So I think actually, apart from all the horrible things around COVID, it's been beneficial for me in terms of confidence and self-care, but also about putting myself out there more and taking more risks. And now, you know, I can be more forward with people, and, you know, I will send that follow-up email, or I will, you know, send you know, pick up the phone to speak to someone, whilst before I think maybe confidence and a bit of self-doubt would prevent that.
Sure, yeah. So what form is, you know, the work that you're doing taking now? Are you able to do what it is that you want to do online through, you know, Zoom or whatever?
So I used to work in family homes and now only work on Zoom with families one-to-one. I used to work in schools and nurseries. I haven't been back into schools yet. I recently ran a block of sessions for an outdoor nursery, which was all fine with COVID, and that was incredible because that was an experience I hadn't had before, working outside. That really helped my confidence. I also now I'm starting kids clubs in next month, so I'll be running Zoom classes for young people online, and the YouTube format will be taking place shortly as well. So there's a bunch of things that have worked for me online that I'm going to definitely continue, but there's still that angle of working in schools and nurseries once some sort of normality comes back.
And I suppose that's the thing that, you know, so many of us are finding difficult just now, and especially a lot of businesses that have ties to the education sector and that side of things, that we're looking for definitive dates of when we can kind of get back in and do things. And is that something that is a struggle for you, because it makes things difficult to plan, and you're not able to kind of go, I want to do this by June, this by July, and just in general business terms, you're trying to think of planning ahead and being able to sort of slot in certain projects and that side of things?
For me, it hasn't been a huge issue because I've then just moved everything online. Online obviously isn't perfect. A lot of children are fed up with working online if they've been, homeschooling, for example. But for me, it's been a bit of a godsend working online. I used to go into organisations and run like training days for staff. Now I can just do that from the comfort of my own home. I've got all my resources here, so I don't feel I have to lug everything around. Plus, you've not got the petrol or the travelling time, the wear and tear to the car. The car just sits there.
I'm loving it. I'm one of these people. I'm kind of like, I'm not missing it at all. It's
No,
nice. Obviously,
absolutely.
you miss the human interaction, but
Of
you know,
course. Yeah,
but like my life was crazy in terms of traveling, jumping in the car, going from meetings to meeting, and one project to the next or whatever. I'm kind of like, hold on, I can do all of
absolutely.
this just on my computer.
And now
I'm
I'm like,
still
I have
loving
to
it.
get dressed, I have to put perfume on,
Hmm.
like all the things you don't need to do.
See, I'm kind of, this is a bit weird. I'm kind of like, I'll still, when I shave, I'll still put aftershave on. I'm like, who the hell's gonna know?
Yeah, I don't bother. All my perfumes just, it's too expensive to live,
I mean, I have used considerably less, it has to be said, but there's just times you kind of like, I just actually want to kind of feel like
Mhm.
normal, like this is what I would normally do, and but you,
Absolutely, absolutely. So I think for me it's been a benefit, and I think I'll just continue the online model. Obviously, if staff, if organisations do want me to come in, or the nurseries and schools want me to physically in the building, then of course over time that will be okay. But just now,
hmm
I think everyone's just getting used to online, and they're appreciating that there's far more benefits than I would say disadvantages to it.
hmm okay, just going to take a little tangent here. Yesterday was International Women's Day, just at the time of recording this. Um, who would you say has been the most profound influence in your life?
Oh.
From a female perspective, who's been that woman who's been an incredible influence to you, a positive influence in your life? Has there been anyone? I mean, it could be somebody,
Really?
somebody who you know personally, or
Hmm.
perhaps somebody who's well known, who's just impacted your life in a positive way.
I would say from somebody that other people may know, it would probably be Brené Brown. Are you aware of Brené
Mm-hmm.
Brown?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean she's pretty well known now. About 4 or 5 years ago, that she wasn't quite as well known, but she kind of put me on that self discovery, if you like, journey, where she was always talking about honesty and self care and also shame. She talks a huge amount about shame, and that we all have that shame that's inside us. We all have those moments where we think, oh, we better not say that, or we know what that person's thinking, and actually, we've got no idea. So she
Mm-hmm.
really taught me kind of how to be honest in an approachable way, but also just to delve into who I am as a person and not be afraid to show that. I think on a personal level, my one of my best friends, Lauren Cameron, is just an amazing woman who actually does inspire me every day. She has such an incredible way of thinking about things, and she knows so much. I call her my human Wikipedia because if I need to know something, but I want to know it from a personal point of view rather than a descriptive Google phrase, I
Yeah.
just ask
Yeah.
her. She knows so much. She's just
Mm-hmm.
such an incredible woman to have by my side, and I've known her since I was 3 years old. And most of my friends, I would say, especially female friends, I've known for a long time, at least 15, 20 years. And I think when you start to know someone that well, then it really helps because they know
Sure.
you as a person as well.
Mm-hmm. So going forward, Karen, where do you see Mind Marvels over the next, say, 2 to 3 years? Do you have a specific plan in mind? Is there new programs that you're developing that you're wanting to get out there?
I think for me, it would be having a small team that can deliver within Scotland, or just West Central Scotland. And then I would like to develop the online. So I'd like to keep the kids' classes running, and I'd also like to have that YouTube channel fully operational so that children in other parts of the world can access. And also it allows, if they like the small bits of content that go out, I'll just do like short snappy videos. Then I think there's that option that they can then explore the kids' classes as well. So there's kind of options for free options, but also options if they do decide to look into it further. And I think that's pretty powerful as well. It just gives more of an insight and also allows accessibility to all as well.
Karen, thank you so much for joining me this morning. I know we were trying to get this up and running a couple of months ago, various tech issues, and we've had some interesting issues today with this, but I think
I know.
using this platform hopefully solves and bypasses those, but I'll soon find out when I get to edit this video.
Fingers crossed, and thanks so much for having me, Greg.
Sure, you're very welcome. Lovely to chat to you, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Excellent. Cheers.